of Pete, followed by interviews of Harry and Meghan on Oprah Winfrey. There are going to be a few thank yous during the speech, so please make sure your glasses are charged, and I'll save myself with a toast when I'm skirting along that very fine line of trying to be funny and offending people at the same time. So today is about my beautiful wife and I. Sharing this day with those who played a role in our lives, bringing the two of us together, and for this I must give you a heartfelt thank you for leaving your busy schedules to honour Tabby and I. There are approximately 4 billion women on this planet, so please have regard to the other 3,999,999 who choose today and will be suffering broken hearts for the rest of their lives. Many of you have sacrificed time, money, work and the safety of your own children to be here for us today and for our special day. We have guests from all over, including even John from Whitby, Tiff from Blackburn, Susie and Simon from Midhurst, Annabelle from Leatherhead, Charlie and Katie from Guildford, Brittany, Pete and Geraldine from Somerset and London, I found out earlier. Tabernacle from Durham, Chelsea from Dublin, who actually made it today. Great effort, well done. Chris and Laura from London, Tabernacle from Durham. Oh, I've already said that. Katie from Australia, but I've heard you've since moved to the UK, but Australia sounds like you made more effort, well done. And Phil and Ashley have travelled about half a mile down the road from Priory Farm, so thank you for your kind words throughout the day, along with the cards and gifts that you've generously donated. Tabby and I are extremely grateful, and so is our bank account. I'd like to give a special thank you to Mum and Michaela for making the amazing lemon and elderflower cake, which is the same flavour that Harry and Meghan had on their wedding day. I told you I wasn't joking about the Netflix documentary. For the single men in the room, I'm sorry Tabby chose 4 absolutely stunning bridesmaids who are all happily married with children. Heather, Hazel, Eva, Maxine, you all look absolutely gorgeous. The military style operations come into your hair, makeup, nails, dresses and shoes in order to match the colour theme of the wedding has really paid off. Most importantly though, you do play an important role in Tabby's life, which is why she chose you to accompany her on our special day. For those that don't know Heather and Hazel, these are both Tabby's older sisters. They share very similar features in looks and personality to Tabby, however have very distant taste in men. As they are both married men, they're at least 6'9" and 7'14" feet, making me the official featherweight of the males. What's great about your wife having sisters 10 years older than her is that they share similar features in looks and personality. It means you get an insight into the future. Now bear with me whilst I try and explain myself. By coincidence, I joined the family at a time that Heather and Hazel were popping babies out like they were setting up their own children's nursery. Tabby and I also one day dream of having our own family, and this has helped me to prepare in which the way Tabby might be during pregnancy. Heather undertook huge amounts of research, bought maternity clothing, maintained a healthy weight, and had what was known in the family as the Pamela Andersons. I don't think that requires much more explaining. Hazel, on the other hand, had only days ago given birth to Annabelle when we first met and adopted a slightly different approach. She used the excuse of being pregnant to polish off family-sized chocolate bars, boxes of chocolate, wearing pyjamas to family occasions, and even sitting on a rubber ring at the dinner table. I prepared for myself for both extremes, but have the comfort in knowing this is my saving line. So regardless of which path Tabby takes, both routes have proven to produce happy, healthy and beautiful children. Maxine has been very close friends with Tabby since high school and is the kind of friend that would convince the bus driver to wait at the bus stop in St John's each morning with over 80 students on board, whilst Tabby is late running to catch the bus to school. By this I mean she is a great role model for Tabby and draws out the best in her. Then on the other hand, you've got Eve, who came into Tabby's life during university. The two of them have travelled the world together, skydived in Australia, and within 10 minutes of being with them both, you quickly get bored of the Jim Carrey, friends, and hangover quotes that they mimic to one another, hysterically laugh, not realising nobody else in the room finds it funny. A mix of sisters and friends like this is a massive part of what makes Tabby the person I love who she is today. And I want to thank you for being you, getting Tabby to the church a little bit late but on time, and the support you'll provide to us as a married couple going forward. Please can you remain seated and raise a toast to the bridesmaids. So my best men and my brothers Matthew and James, it's very rare that get emotional again. I'm all the point. It's rare for brothers like us to have the bond that we do. There's never a day that we don't go without hearing from one another. I can honestly say we've got each other's best interests at heart. The best way in which I can describe my relationship with Matthew and James in one sentence is that Matthew is the kind of guy that I would contact in the event that I was ever arrested and put in prison. And James is probably the person that most likely got us arrested and put in prison. It's only looking back now at Matthew's wedding when I had the pleasure of dismantling him for 20 minutes during a best man speech, that it never really entered my head that one day he would have the opportunity to return the favour. As for James, just remember you're getting married in June next year, so whatever words come out of your mouth today, I've got more ammo on you than the North Korean army have on the rest of the world. You both said it would be the happiest day of my life, and you're right, the stag do was absolutely To my groomsmen, Jake, Bailey, Eric, Johnny and Seth. So I got to know Jake during my first sort of 6 years in London. He was generous enough to let me live in his house in Clapham for a whopping rent of £433 a month, which is just a joke, isn't it? It shouldn't really come as a surprise then that I was there for 4 years. It doesn't take a genius to work out by looking at Jake. He's into his fitness, and I took full advantage of this by having one-to-one personal training sessions at Clapham Leisure Centre, where we signed up as a couple's membership. As an osteopath, I also benefited from regular free treatments, and in return, I would let him use my Renault traffic van, whereby we managed to rack up approximately 150 parking fines. Bailey, whose real name is actually Ian, who I can now officially call my brother-in-law, is a 6'7", size 14 free, Manx-friendly giant. It was quite handy when it comes to fixing, maintaining and modifying cars and bikes. It's therefore no surprise that before Tabby and I met, he was the first point of call in the event Tabby was ever having a crisis with her car. Despite his initial thoughts that it was a bit soon that meeting the family for the first time, considering the short time that we had been dating, I think he quickly realised with the family connections to Athel's Garage, he could quickly use this to his advantage, offloading any emergency calls from Tabby about her car breaking down onto me. For those that haven't had the pleasure of meeting Eric, this is Joanna's husband. Despite retiring a number of years ago, he's the hardest working Manxest Manxman I've ever met. If he's not working for Jamie's removals, he's usually attending to the garden at home, and on the rare occasion that he's allowed the opportunity to rest, he enjoys nothing more than a cold cider. At this point, you get the chance to hear his stories from leaving school to start a career in panel beating, before working in the quarry at Stony Mountain, where I'm told he never had a whole day off sick in his whole career. Like any true Manxman, Eric is a meat and potatoes man. He doesn't eat anything he can't spell. He thinks the beans at Lowe's are too spicy. There's no cheese in cheesecake, and he thinks he can still taste the curry powder he had once in a soup in the 1980s. He also doesn't see the point in going abroad because he's seen it all on the telly. So, Johnny, my groomsman and MC at the wedding. Despite owning a recruitment company, I rarely see Johnny recruiting. Instead, out on his motorbike, walking the dog, or enjoying a beer in the sun at the shore. This type of lifestyle was what he advertised to Tabby and I was like living down south, which encouraged us to buy a house in Port Erin. It was only after we bought the house, Johnny informed us that we needed a living down south starter pack, consisted of a head torch, electric bike and wet wipes, which is when I discovered a quick beer at the shore at Cansey actually means going for 10 pints with him and Steve, putting your head torch on and e-bike and back home. Before you ask, I still haven't discovered what the wet wipes are for. Last but not least, out on my groomsmen, and one of my longest and best friends, Seth. Despite looking like a Viking today, his appearance was very much different when we first met in Bradham Play School. We both played for Douglas Rugby Minis, juniors and senior teams, the team that famously won the Cheshire Cup final. We went through St John's School, QE2 School, up until about year 10 before he joined Sedbergh Boarding School in the hope that one day to follow his dream of becoming a professional rugby player.
Well.
Despite the distance, Seth and I stayed in contact throughout the rest of high school. We visited each other during university, and in London for the short period he lived there and worked as a manny. And this is the term that Seth used for a male nanny. To summarise, this is a mixture of family members and friends I'm honoured to call my best men and groomsmen, who are fulfilling very important roles today, and I can't thank you enough. If you could please remain seated and just raise a toast to the best men and groomsmen, that'd be much appreciated.
The best men and groomsmen.
I'm trying to wrap through this, but I've got so much to say. So today would not have been possible had it not been for my mum and dad. The two of them have been married since the 5th of March 1988, and they've been role model parents that I can only hope Tabby and I replicate for our own family one day. In this day and age, it's almost fashionable for people and individuals to try and claim that they've had a tough upbringing as an excuse as to why they have the issues they do. And I'm happy to admit that my upbringing has been close to perfection, and I'm still full of mental health issues. Really emotional. I've always had the perfect balance of emotional support from my mum in times when I've needed to discuss quite personal matters, and quite tough but fair life lessons from my dad on how to work hard, provide for your family, and be the rock that is there for everybody else. As I've got older, the father and son time relationship has matured into a very special friendship and a wise person to contact when seeking reassurance before making any major life or business decisions. As he's generally been there, done that and got the t-shirt.
Oh, Ben!
Yeah, I think it's fair to say I wouldn't be the person I am if it wasn't for the two of you who have guided and supported me like you have. They've encouraged me to take the risk that I have, knowing I had a huge safety net to fall back on, so thank you. So for those who haven't met my mother-in-law already, Joanna is a bit of a celebrity in St John's. She's known for being a bit of a character.
Yes, Mum.
To say I wasn't nervous when I first met her is an understatement. As I was informed she was unapologetically herself, and you either get her or you don't. I'm fortunately someone that does get her, and I do admire the mother and daughter relationship Tabby and her share, as there's very much an unbreakable bond between the two of them. Despite initial concerns that when asking for a daughter's hand in marriage that it would soon be known island-wide within leaving the house, I can confirm Joanna stuck to her word and managed to keep it a secret, and for that I really can't thank you enough. So our business partners Mark Grace, Mark Canty, Tim Groves and Andrew Wallace are all here this evening, along with their wives Rachel, Terry, Anne and Claire. A bit like in the office, Jeff Black is nowhere to be seen. However, working with each other means we see each other Monday to Friday, every single week. So to come along something so personal to me outside of work really means a lot, and probably see a different side of me. It was always a dream of mine to one day work for myself, and a special thank you must really go out to Mark Grace, who not only put his neck on the line to justify to the other directors at Black Grace Cowley that I was the right person for the role, but also selling his own shares to me to make my dream a reality is something I really can't put into words how grateful I am. To show my appreciation over the last 3.5 years and to prove to the other directors I don't just talk the talk, I really do put my heart and soul into that business, and the success that we have generally does come from the blood, sweat and tears that we collectively put into it. I mean, you guys probably see what I do 9 till 5:30 every day, but Tabby sees what I do from 5:30 till 9:30 the next day. I think Tabby's accepted that the business has become the second love of my life and something I care deeply about, despite it being being made very clear that it can't come on the honeymoon with us. Speaking of honeymoon, in a week's time, Tabby and I will be setting off to the Big Apple for the first time for our first 5 days of an amazing trip that we planned, before making our way down to the Bahamas for 2 weeks. Despite looking to Tabby for reassurance that I won't be the hairiest, fattest or pinkest person on the beach, she's already reassured me that I'm not to worry as there'll be plenty of wild pigs roaming around. People often ask Tabby how we met each other, and believe it or not, Tabby's actually been in my life since I was 4 years old, having attended Bradden Play School since 1997. We both attended St John's Primary School. My parents owned the cottage directly opposite Tabby's childhood home. Tabby was only 2 year groups below me, and it's hard not to remember her when she was picked up on Harley Davidson by her mum. My groomsman Seth lived next door to Tabby, so there were times when I went back to his house for tea after school to go to soccer school, that Tabby and I would occasionally share a car together. On days it was raining, so she didn't get soaked on the walk home. We both attended QE2 High School, and I remember one of the lads in my circle of friends having a crush on Tabby. Thankfully, she rejected him, and I never let her live him down. Whilst it wasn't love at first sight, the love of my life has always been within touching distance, and it wasn't until the age of 25, whilst I was working in London, having just completed my exams as a chartered surveyor, and Tabby had just finished travelling the world and taking part in the Miss Isle of Man, as Joanna mentioned earlier, that the two of us met in the Courthouse nightclub during one of my many visits home, and we swapped numbers. We messaged each other every single day for a number of months, and during my next visit around Christmas time, we went on our first date to the Tynwald Mills Neb Cafe. We fell for each other extremely quickly, and it felt like the blink of an eye before I had to board the flight back to London, where we agreed Tabby would fly over in a few weeks' time so we could see each other again. A few weeks felt like a few years, but it gave me enough time to plan our next date to the Tower of London, followed by a trip to the London Dungeons, dinner at the Ned, followed by cocktails at a Sky Bar in Walkie Talkie Building. A massive uplift from the Tynwald Mills Neb Cafe. I was beyond excited to see Tabby again, and I drove to London Gatwick Airport in my Renault Traffic van, and I waited for her outside the gate. I was so nervous that every time someone walked out, my adrenaline would kick in, and she eventually walked through, and that feeling quickly disappeared, and it was like we'd never been apart. We had a very happy, distant relationship for the next 3 years, and we were living in a fairy tale world where we could share our time between the Isle of Man and London. And it was becoming quite apparent that each time we said see you later, never goodbye, at the airport, it was becoming harder and harder. The turning point was after we had dinner, followed by drinks with Seth along the Thames in Richmond, and Seth asked me in front of Tabby, when do you think you'll move back to the Isle of Man then? And I very naively answered, without thinking, probably in a few years. It was only when we were lying in bed next to each other that night, Tabby asked me, did I really mean it when I said a few years? And we stayed up for a couple of hours talking about how a life on the Isle of Man or London would work with each other. The key point is though that breaking up was never an option. Despite having my dream job, working as a development agent for one of the biggest surveying firms in London, I knew I loved Tabby more. I made her a promise that one day in the near future I'd move back, buy a house and we'll get married. Tabby and I wanted this to happen so much, we even hung a wish on the tree on the ferry bridge during one of my visits home. I'm pleased to say, stood here today, that every promise I made has been fulfilled. And we achieved it through our desire to one day be with each other and not let anything get in the way of that. I guess that just leaves one more person to mention. Funny, gorgeous, sexy, generous. And those are just some of the words I heard people say about me earlier. Of course, I'm really joking. My stunning, beautifully bride, Tabby. You look out of this world, and I have no shame in admitting that I'm punchy. I fancy every single inch of you, and you are without doubt the most loyal, caring, loving, sensitive, and kind person I have ever met. With a fantastic sense of humour brings out the best in me. You're my best friend, and no matter how bad of a day I've had, somehow you make everything okay again. And I can't wait. I can't believe I get to call you my wife. I can't imagine my life being without you. And despite achieving everything we have together, I think it's only the beginning of a very exciting future together for the rest of our lives and after that. And on that note, please can you all stand up and toast to my wife, the new Mrs. Bird.
Mrs. Quill.